Hey, family, good evening. I'm Monica May. And for the last 40 years, I've been a radio and television broadcaster. And one of the best parts of my gig was being able to interview people and let them tell their stories. Tonight, we're going to hear from Gail Gardner. She's got one heck of a story. And Gail is a former educator. She's retired now, a New York City born and bred sister. She's been in Orlando in the Orange County area for the last 42 years. But about 33 years ago, in 1988 to be exact, she and her son were asleep at night and an attacker came in. And you can imagine. But it's not only that attack that has caused the trauma, it's the delay in finding out where that attacker went. Imagine that, looking over your shoulder, peeping through the windows. Just every jump, every noise makes you jump. That's the life that our guest had to live. Gail Gardner is here with us this evening. And when I tell you she is a true victor, from victim to victor is what I put on our flyer for this evening's One Take Live. Good evening, my sister. I am so very proud of you for telling this story and making sure that it rests where it needs to rest. With state legislators. She got two folks really strong behind her, and the rest is, well, Gail's story. Why don't you share that with us? Good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for being on.
Good evening, Monica. It's so good to be with you. We go back. We have history.
Yeah.
And you had heard this story some years ago before it ever got to this point. Back in 1988, I was brutally raped. And I say brutally, not only was it a mark on my face from a sharp knife that is no longer there, but it left us a mark on my my mental emotional state that I had gone through. So my son and I were sleeping, and someone broke in, and I always say I knew an angel was in the house because I was not allowed to stay in. My son knew nothing about it, what was going on. I was not allowed to stay in that room, but I was taken out of that room where we were. And I immediately, when the attacker left, after he threatened me, they never saw my face. I never saw theirs. It was pitch black. But I went next door. I ran next door. I woke my son up, and we fled, and called the police next door, and they came there. So from that point on, I was always looking over my shoulder. I heard a legislator say that the one thing that can really send you off the deep end through life, and he was saying, I paraphrase, is that is the fact that we don't know, the not knowing. And so I lived like that, the uncertainty for a number of years, for over 30 years. And back in November of 2019, and I worked with women through that time. Let me just say, we had at that time woman-to-woman mentorship. And so now we have Rafa Soul Care, but we had been working with women all the time, still not knowing, could not sleep in the dark. From 1988 to 2016, it wasn't until 2016 that I actually cut the lights out in a place where I had moved to. I sold my home. And it was from then on, I could sleep so much better. I could walk through the garage, the indoor garage, so much better. If it had been any time, or if I didn't feel safe, it would have been a problem. So when 2019 got here, I was actually going somewhere else to visit my goddaughter, and I called her and she wasn't home. And so I kept moving, kept driving past South Street, and I had gone before I wanted my records when the Orlando Police Department was on Huey. And so this time I said, let me go in here and see if I can get this. And was never contacted, never moved, worked in Orange County Public Schools, Jones High to be exact, and a couple of other schools in the county. And so no one contacted me. And when I went in there that day, I just wanted copies of my records. I had a mindset to write or to record a visual of me talking to an audience of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that they would have my memoirs when I'm long gone. When I got there to the window and asked the woman for my record, she said, when was that? I said 1980. At first I said 89 because I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think it was 1989. It was like April 30th, 1989. And when she came back she said, well, that's going to be a lot of digging and cost you some money, but hold on a minute. Let me see if I can get you a detective. And so she went to get a detective, and he came back with the case number.
Mm-hmm.
And it was April 29th, 1988. I was really off. That's why I needed it, because victims don't necessarily remember every piece of a trauma, and it comes in pieces. And so when he came, he said, let me look into this. Is that all right? I said, yes. And I'm left there stymied because I'm going, what just happened?
Yeah.
I'm headed out the door. And I said, well, what happened here? And so I finally uh, heard from him later, about a month later. He says, we have a DNA, a sample of yours. He says, we think we have one of theirs. He said, of your attacker. I found out, as long story short, that they did have one. They had to go in and find all, get some more pieces. And I really wanted, one time, the blanket that was on my bed, the room that I was taken out of, it would belong to my great aunt. And so I had called FDLE years ago for it. And so here now, I find out that the kit is still there. Now, there's two stories. The FDLE says that they tested the kit, and that's all they would say. They said, Miss Gardner, we tested the kit, and I said, well, that was not my truth. I heard that. And myself, I'm thinking you couldn't have tested it because nobody contacted me about having the rapist. The rapist has been in prison with a life sentence all these years. And I have been looking over my shoulder. I'm afraid to go in the store. Sometimes I have these nightmares. Like you said, I tell people all the time that the least noise, the sheriff department come out to my house had more lights around it.
And I can imagine than a stadium, probably.
Yeah. I had the sheriff tell me one time, he said, you don't have to worry about anybody coming out here. He said, because they'll go next door first, as many lights as you got around this house.
That's all right.
And I said, they applauded me. The fact that I refused to sleep in a dark, house, or a dark a property not well lit. Mm-hmm. So I went ahead and told him to go ahead, and it took a few months here and there. And then one time he told me, I said, well, what's taking so long? Because this was 2019, we're going into 2020. And he says, well, one thing is we want to make sure that we don't have to go back for this again and drag this case out. And I don't know that, right? And somebody asked me, but why you didn't look, find this out, why you didn't go? I said, I don't know to do that. And that's one thing I want to let people know. And I'm going to educate people who have been sexually assaulted or sexually abused, or anyone else who think they might be, that you need to understand. You need to learn to be able to advocate for yourself. And you have to know the rules. You have to know the process. And you can't allow your emotions to get in the middle of it, because there's a bias there, especially with Black women. Mm-hmm. There's a bias. You understand, this rapist was who called the Malibu rapist. And he was in the Malibu, Richmond Heights, and Washington Shores community. And so, after that, they got as many as they want to give him a life sentence. And so my rape kit probably was tested, maybe, and set on the shelf. Either way, they got enough evidence that they needed. The rest of us was history. So when this finally came and broke out, we had a press conference not too long ago, but they told me that he was there. And I talked to someone else who, showed me how to go online and find this, my case. Mm-hmm. And he had been in prison for a number of years, since the early 90s. Okay. Late 80s or the early 90s. And that was amazing to me.
And you never knew.
Never knew. And now there's 26 other women, listen to this, whose case, including mine, whose cases were found while he's been there, since they started looking for mine. When they started searching mine, they found 25 more. 11 of those people have gone on to glory. They have died not having any type of closure to their lives whatsoever, which I plan to honor them in some way, because it just should not be families who've had to suffer. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know my diagnosis on myself, I could tell you I had a little bit of everything, okay,
Okay.
through that PTSD and whatever. And no, I was not the most, I'm very quick to answer, get upset real quick. I mean, had all the signs. And it's just,
Gail, did you
it
do any
weighs havoc on your family, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's hard on your family. I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you two questions. One about your son. How is he doing through all of this? And then the other is, when did you begin counseling? Because I know that you had to do some type of counseling.
Well, first, Aaron is doing fine. He has learned to, in his own way, he was raised in the church, and he has learned to use his own ways of coping with some things. I wish he would do better, but I've never been to the jailhouse or the crack house about him.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah. And he works every day, takes care of himself. He doesn't have any children. He's not married. He said he's going to one day, and I'm hoping that soon,
Yeah.
but he's doing okay. I asked him, what did he have to say about this case? And he said, I'd like to meet him. I like to ask him something. I said, what would you want to ask him? He said, I want to ask him what was his mommy issues that caused him to attack my mother.
That's right.
He said, because I took it personal. I don't care how many other people were involved.
That's
and
right.
I said, okay.
So how old was he at the time?
He was 9 years old.
9 years old.
And he'll be 43 this month. So it's been a journey for him.
Mm-hmm. And it has been. That is aggravated childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And it could have been for him a lot worse, I'm sure. Gail Gardner is our guest tonight. Gail's law has just been passed. This governor here in Florida just signed it July 1st.
Yeah.
And it will mean that a woman will know what's going on with her case. The kit will be, the rape kit will be moved quicker. What more will this bill provide us with?
Well, let me say that it's not just, for anyone who has been raped or sexually abused in some fashion, male, female, child. What happens is that now that there's a rape kit tracking system, instead of it just sitting, and because the laws have changed back in 2017, where they had to get backlog, I think it was like 10,000, I heard, of backlog cases back then. And they had to actually go ahead and test all those kits and begin to put some kind of life to them. So now they can actually track it through the process of all of those actors who are part of the system, from the law enforcement to FDLE, and even the national CORDIS tracking system, where they track all those through the federal government. Well, now we have it, and there's like 30. I think we're about to 30, 31 states, as I understand it. But during this time, when they started with my case, it was like 27. So we're making progress.
Okay. Listen, we have about 2 minutes left. You mentioned something about taking the emotion out of it. What would be the steps that a woman should go through if ever she's faced with this trauma, the trauma of rape?
Yeah, I did get some counseling back then. It was back in 1988, 89, 90. But at that time, I couldn't afford, and we did not have insurance for it. Now there's free counseling. A woman or a man or whoever is the person can go through the Victim Service Center of Central Florida, and they have free counseling. There is some way. I would not advise anyone not to get someone. You have a pastor, you have someone you can trust, that you must be able to speak it. So I advise them to begin to tell what happened to them. Go to the police and get that test. Make sure, because some people I know, they did not get a test, and now they can't get what they need from that.
So the first thing to do would be to call the police.
Yeah.
Second thing is, you are going to have to go to a hospital, right?
Definitely. And you don't have to, they're going to take you, but there's also centers where now they'll take you, where there's a testing there by a nurse, that would do that testing for assault victims.
Okay, so first thing is you're going to get yourself together. You do not shower. That's the first thing.
No.
You don't shower. You get down to the police station or call the police to you. You
That's
do
right.
get the kit done through an examination, and you make sure to follow that case.
Follow that
Sure
case.
to
You got
follow.
to. This, I must say, what goes on in the House stays in the South does not apply for this situation. You wind up aiding and abetting criminals. If you know little Johnny is doing some things that are not right, or things are happening in your home, there's some things you don't keep to yourself. And this is one of them. And so, yeah, you have to be able to tell someone, give them that knowledge of what's going on, some strange things that may be happening, so that you can have an advocate for yourself.
You know, the last thing before we let you go, the two legislators that helped you, their names?
Senator Linda Stewart, appreciate her so much, and Representative Schlossberg, Emily Schlossberg, young lady, and Carol Wick. I can't leave her out of her survivors.
That's right, Carol Wick.
Yes, yes. So I thankful for them. They're helping my community, and we must be able to put our efforts forward for what other people are sacrificing on our behalf.
That's right. Where can we find you if we need some one-on-one uplifting? Where can we find you? What's your web address?
My web address is still the King's Daughter at .com, and it's also, I'm sorry, info@stillthekingsdaughter.com is my email address. And also, they can, I'm not that private. I tend to go through, but if they really need me, Gail F. Gardner @gmail.com. Right now, I'll take even that to kind of give somebody some leads.
That's right. That's right. Gail Gardner, thank you so much for being the strong woman that you are, for being the vigilant woman that you are, and remaining the victor. That's who you are. And don't let anybody tell you anything different.
Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I thank you for watching another edition of One Take Live. I'm Monica May. Have a wonderful evening.